Hi, I'm Allison Crouch from Move Smart Movement and Boomerang Pilates, and welcome to Teacher Talk. And we're going to talk about TechNeck today. And we're talking about it specifically in the context of what it's like to be a teacher, and particularly to be a teacher right now at this time. Should you be watching this later, we're doing this kind of in the third month of the pandemic time. So as teachers, we've all shifted hugely into this online world. And for some of us, it's not that hugely different. Lots of people have been doing online work for quite some time. But most of us not solely and exclusively online work. And so there's a physical challenge. And I am part of this for sure, that I'm aware that I just like the forward head position. I tend to do a combo of demo and cueing when I'm teaching. So I spend a chunk of time here in front of my computer doing this, looking, right, with my neck compressing and pushing forward. And I have to be thoughtful about how I place my head, because I have a history of neck stuff and shoulder stuff, and I know that once it locks in, it's uncomfortable. And I've heard a bunch from other teachers about having an unwarranted amount of neck stuff going on. So I thought this was a good place to unwind some of that together. And I think that in addition to the just straight up physical demoing and looking over at the computer, which I think we're all doing more of than we might do in a class, projecting, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff around voice that's going to affect our necks. And so if you are tending to be farther away from your computer or your webcam and you feel like you're projecting, that's also going to have an effect on neck sensations. There's also a whole host of other things that go along with teaching, and this has come up a lot recently. We hold an interesting place in our clients' lives, and this is true all of the time. We provide a service in terms of physical health and well-being and movement, but we also provide community. And I think the relational aspect of the work that we do is, for a lot of us, is really important. And it's important from both ends. It's important for us. It's important for our clients. And in a regular world, I spend a certain amount of time coaching people on how to have good boundaries with clients and how to manage stress that clients are bringing in live and in person in ways that we're all comfortable with and familiar with. Well, so now the whole entire world is stressed. Even the introverts, who are often really happy to just be at home and not having to emerge, they're still responding to this kind of overall anxiety level. And now we are probably anxious. Our livelihoods are being affected. Our families are being affected. We may know people who are ill. We may know people who aren't ill, but they are immune compromised, and that stress is there. We're dealing with our clients' stress being there. I feel like this has become a big part of what we're doing, is we're helping provide an environment where our clients can also downregulate a little bit. They can be in relationship, if you're running the kinds of classes where people can still see their classmates. And for lots of people, that kind of stress ends up being a neck thing, right? And it just does this. So I kind of wanted to address those two components of neck stuff for us specifically, and we'll do some exercises that are also helpful for everybody, whether they're clients or, all of this stuff is helpful whether we're clients or not, but I think it would be interesting to just think about this for you for the moment. And so when we are looking at physical tensions, and I know some of the terminology around tight, tense, stiff. If you're in the sort of the pain science world, some of this terminology, the language is different. People like different kinds of words. So not my super specialty. I will use the words tight and tense, understanding that where that tension and tightness comes from is primarily neurological, just for people who like a lot of precision. I'm just going to use words. So you can translate those words into whatever language makes you feel good. Start with this little experiment. Just hang out, close your eyes if that feels good to you. Notice, how are you sitting or standing, whatever position you're in while you are here. And feel for where is your head relative to the rest of your body. Do you have any tension, or are you aware of any kind of discomfort in and around your neck and shoulders? And then just kind of give that a bit of a gauge. And then, without going into any kind of stretches, because I think we get really hooked on the idea that we need to do neck stretches, ask your brain to just find some ease around your head and neck. And if you feel all double chinny, you're doing great. It's awesome. This is my #1 strategy for neck stuff. So I have a history of chronic pain. I had fibromyalgia for many years, which is how I got into Pilates and movement, was kind of the final piece of the puzzle for helping me live this awesome life I have. So I had a big kind of choreographed series of things I did with my head and neck, because I had a lot of pain stuff around my neck and shoulders. And a very, very wise woman said to me probably 15 years ago, when I'd already been teaching for several years, she said, you know, I have a suggestion. Before you go into this whole moving the tight muscles around and then just putting them back where they're tight because you haven't changed your thought process, try just asking your body to let go of whatever tension you don't need. And it's remarkably unsatisfying initially, because there's no big sensation, right? If you're tight and you're like, oh yeah, the good stretch, that feels so great. There's not a lot of sensation to release work. But I think release, so my personal teaching approach is release, stretch, and activation. You need strength, you need motor skills, you need the capacity to stretch, and you need the capacity to release. And stretch and release are not the same thing. So this idea of releasing doesn't have much sensation to it. But for sure, if I do it and I just let go, you can probably see my head slides back. If you give me 2 minutes, I can do it again. My brain picks up that habit and position so quickly that I just kind of continuously push my head forward. And this is a practice for me. I do this probably 5 times a day, sometimes more than that, where I just pause and allow myself to let go of excess tension. And you may find that you're trying this and nothing's happening. It is a skill. It is a practice. It takes a bit of a moment, especially if you tend to be a high sensation person. It takes some practice to feel for what's happening, because it's so subtle, right? And it's so nuanced. But I think it's a really good strategy. I think it's really helpful as a change in your brain map, as a change in your habit of holding tension. Lots of muscle tension is not, it's not necessarily a physiological, oh, this is what the mechanics of this shape are. It's just your brain is sending a message to tighten up. And the only way to change that is to identify it and start practicing not doing it. And so I feel like that's a really good starting place. We're going to kind of move from extremely non-invasive, non-intrusive, and we're going to go up to more exercisey stuff. So then we're going to go to hands-on. And so just, again, there's no real rule about this. Just put your hands on your neck. And you can go anywhere. I like making sure that I'm actually on skin. If that feels great for you, awesome. If it does not feel great for you, also awesome. I like this all the time, but I am particularly liking it right now, especially for people who are isolating alone. For anybody who's not getting any physical contact because that's how their life is unrolling at this time, that's really challenging. for people's mental health and sense of wellness and connectedness to not have any physical relation. So, you know, is it the same as getting a massage? No, it is not. Is it the same as having someone else put their hands on you? No, it's not. But just putting your hands on your neck is a really useful way to connect with your neck in a different way. So as you do that, just moving your hands around to whatever ways make sense to you. I'm also going to add, this is one of the things that came up yesterday. So for those of you who aren't aware, this is pass number 2 of this session. We got together a whole group of us yesterday and we had a lovely and fantastic meetup discussing all of these things, and I forgot to record it. So this is pass number 2. Well, one of the things that came up yesterday from somebody was that she holds a lot of tension in her neck and shoulders, and letting go of it felt unsafe. It felt unnerving to start making this kind of contact and releasing to start with. And she adapted to it as we went along. But if you are feeling unsafe, or you're feeling like some of this is your neck shouldn't be releasing or relaxing, stay in ranges that feel like something that you can explore, something that might be unfamiliar but not unsafe. And of course, if you're physically uncomfortable, I'd like you to stop and be mindful about how you progress, because I'm not there with you and I can't see you. So that's just a little extra bit. So now we're going to take the same hands-on neck and we're going to start to move your skin. Well, you are going to start to move your own skin. I'm going to move my skin. You have your skin. Underneath the skin, you have the superficial layer of fascia. Underneath that, you have other layers of fascia and musculature and tendons and ligaments and bones and all that stuff. But what we really touch is the skin. It's a really important thing to remember when we're working with clients, especially if we tend to be a bit anatomy geeky. I do like the anatomy very much. Your clients may not connect to the idea of the muscles specifically underneath, but everybody can touch their skin. It's a really good teaching tool. Anyway, so now we're going to do this little fascial glide idea. So what you're trying to do, and you can use your whole hand, you can use just the tips of your fingers, but the flats, not the points, is you're trying to move the layer of skin relative to the fascia underneath it. And this should all feel good. You want the amount of pressure that works best for you, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel like this is releasing tension, that this is waking up muscles, that this is helping your brain to connect to your neck as a good and positive thing, especially if you tend to have neck discomfort regularly. And you can go wherever on your neck your body kind of calls you to go to. And you want to just get this little slide and glide. It's like you're trying to increase the fluid to put a little olive oil in between your skin and the layer of tissue underneath it. And then you're going to come up onto your face, because we know that there's a huge connection between jaw tension and neck tension, or jaw comfort and neck comfort. So come on in here, and this is something else that came up yesterday. This is something that you do if you are at home and your hands are clean. Because we're not really supposed to be touching our faces these days, because it's a really excellent disease viral vector. So not something that you're going to do with a client, not something that you would do in a class anymore. When we get back to being open, this is a hands clean, safe approach to face touching. But it's really important to keep touching your face. I mean, I realize there's an extra step now. You need to wash your hands before you do it. But continuing to make contact with our faces is another component to our sense of self, our sense of place in ourself. And this is just me kind of talking off the top of my head, but our faces are part of how we communicate with our clients, right? As much as you're doing lots of verbal communication, they're looking at us through the mechanism of the screen, and the messages that we're conveying to them are partly coming through facial expression. And so having a really nice sense of your own face being a good and restful and open and pliable thing maybe helps to support what you're conveying to your clients. All right, and then we also know that coming up here has a big connection to your neck. Your sternocleidomastoid attaching to your mastoid bone, coming down to your sternum and your clavicles. So you're going to come up in here and you're going to work, and you can do this however works for you, right? You could do sort of 2 or 3 fingers and work your way across coming this way. You can do all your fingers at once, but there are a couple of different reasons for doing this. One, sternocleidomastoid coming through into the back of your, mastoid bone down here. This is all about the posterior fascial chain. So your back line comes up from your feet all the way up the back of your body and terminates here. So getting some movement into this part of your skin and fascia has an effect down the back of your neck. So you do some of those, and then you come down here and you get into the little kind of the lump behind the back of your ear, the one that very effectively will move your glasses if you're wearing glasses. And these are all, this is a great technique for neck, releasing neck tension. It's a great technique for releasing headaches. For some people, it's a really good sort of anxiety decreaser. And of course, with all of this stuff, if anybody feels like their anxiety is increasing, then you would stop and find an alternate strategy for neck management. So I really like all of those, and you know, they don't require any props, which is nice in this online teaching world where we don't really know necessarily what the clients have with them, and you can't do it wrong. There's no right or wrong about this. It's just move your skin. So if you now go back and think about where is your head relative to your neck, and where is your head and your neck relative to your shoulders and your chest, and how much stress and tension do you have, and how easily are you settling into your double chin, it may have changed. We've done a kind of a release strategy in terms of just letting go of tension. We've done a fascial strategy, which also has a neurological component to it. So maybe that has changed some things. And then the next thing we're going to do is eye exercises, which I really like, and I always find them really weird because I'm mostly blind on one side. So anytime I'm moving my eyes to one side and the other, I get an opportunity to do something that I don't do naturally. My eyes just don't go this way very often because they don't really see anything. And we would do this because where your eyes lead, your head will follow. And so how your eyes move affects your head. And quite subtly, your eyes are connected to your suboccipital muscles. They're almost like it's a preparatory process. So before your head does a big visible turn, which is going to be more about the bigger, more surface neck muscles, your suboccipit group are responding. So even when you're asleep, when your eyes are moving in REM sleep, your suboccipital muscles are responding to that. That's a lot going on. But we tend to do it in a very limited range because devices and because we live inside and we don't look at distance. Even research done on distance work tends to talk about not more than 20 or 30 feet, as opposed to, well, what happens if you live in a place where you regularly look 40, 50, 60, 200, 800 feet? We don't really do that very much anymore. So here's a little eye movement sequence. So you're going to start with, put your thumb on your chest or on your sternum and your finger on your chin, because it's amazing if you, so what we're going to do is we're going to move your eyes without moving your head, but it can be surprisingly difficult to not move your head. So you want to ease some space into the back of your neck so that you're not holding tight, shoulders relaxed, and then slide your eyes slowly to one side without moving your head, and come through center and slowly slide them the other way. And just gradually ease your way back and forth. And you may notice that your gaze is not smooth, right? Most people, there's a there will be some kind of starting and stopping going on. And you want to try and smooth out that glide of your eyes as much as you can. And it can be weirdly harder to do than it seems like it should be, or at least that's my experience. And then you come back to center. And because we tend to do a lot of looking down, right, at all of our devices, we don't use the upper range of our eyes quite so much. So if you're just kind of turn away from the computer, close your eyes, move your head around a little bit. And then when you open your eyes, notice where did your eyes look. See if you can find some kind of visual marker, cue, that will tell you what was your horizon line in this moment. And then we're going to make rainbow arcs. So slide your eyes all the way over to one side, keeping your head super still. And then slide your eyes up and around and all the way over to the other side. And just keep sliding through, over, up, around, and down. So you're not doing the bottom, you're going up, around, over to the side, and up and over, around to the side. Same thing, you may find that what you're actually getting is more like this, where you have a couple of spots that your eyes hop out of their arc. So you're doing the same thing. You're trying to smooth it out as much as you can. I like to use an image of, if you can imagine a turned bowl, you know, that they're made out of this beautiful, smooth, satiny wood. Imagine you're trying to create the inside of a bowl like that you're just buffing softly around and around to create this really soft arc. And then you're going to give yourself a focal point. So now you're going to have to be in charge of not moving your head, your own self. You're going to take your fingers and you're going to follow your fingers. So now you have something to focus on as you move around your rainbow arc. If this gets uncomfortable, stop. Maybe don't take your arc quite as big. Remember that your eye muscles are muscles, just like any other muscle. And if you're not accustomed to using them a whole lot like this, they will fatigue. And that's okay. And then bring your eyes back to center and close your eyes. Turn back to what you looked at the first time and open your eyes and see where is your horizon line now. And you may find that your eyes naturally lifted, like you've woken up the muscles that help to hold your eyeballs actually more at the horizon line, as opposed to being held a little lower down, which is often where we habitually go to. So that's all lovely. Now you're going to switch it. Pick a spot and look directly forward. So you could be looking at your computer screen, or you could look at something else. And now you're going to move your head without moving your eyes. Also harder to do than you would think. And one of the really good uses of a cell phone here is film yourself doing it and then play it back. And you'll probably be amazed at how much eye drift you get that you weren't aware of. One of the things to notice here is, are you tightening into the back of your neck? Are you gradually tipping up as you go? And can you maintain if you were to think of the back of your skull staying level on a tabletop as you do this rotation, rather than letting it tip one way or the other? And then you can come back to center. And then I would say, because our hands are clean and we've already scooched up our faces, you might want to squinch your eyes up, relax, squinch them up. Take your hands and just place them over top of your eyes and give yourself a little moment to allow them to rest after that little workout. You can go on Instagram today and say, hey, I did an awesome eyeball workout. Gains. But it's really important in terms of how our necks are moving to have a little bit more variety and diversity to the way we move our eyes. and kind of unhook. So your eyes and your neck and your head are supposed to, those movements are supposed to be connected, right? That's, if there's danger and risk over here, you don't want to have to plan moving your eyes and moving your head. You want those things to go together. It's useful to work them going together, but it's also useful to unchunk them as a separate experience, just to change, offer variety and novelty and diversity and a different way for your brain to think about how those muscles move, because it makes your neck feel better. And that kind of is that's my whole prep series of neck stuff. And now we'll do actual neck exercises, more of what we would think about when we think of neck exercises rather than all of this preparatory stuff. So we're going to start with head ramping, which some people are familiar with and some people not so much. Head ramping is, if you imagine your jawline and a pyramid, you're going to slide your jawline up that pyramid. You are ramping your head right up to the base of your skull, up and back. And then you can let it release and slide it up and back and let it release. So I'm pretty mobile and familiar with this practice. So you or your clients may not be getting the same kind of movement. Your clients might not get the same kind of movement you do, especially with neck stuff. It's important to allow people to work within their boundaries, meet their bodies where they are instead of kind of forcing past them. But one of the things that you'll often see if somebody is quite tight in their neck is that they're not actually head ramping. They're not moving through their cervical spine. They're just shifting their whole shoulder girdle, upper spine, thoracic spine. It's all about a rib shear and a spinal shear, and it's just taking their whole head back in space, which is not the same thing. So I like to cue clients, and to cue myself for that matter. I'd like to put one hand on my chest. I might put one hand on my ribs, and I experiment with starting in different places. What do I need to do to make sure that this isn't moving? And for people who tend to be in this position to begin with, it might not be really comfortable. And you maybe get them to actually let themselves roll forward. This is it's an alignment exercise, but it's possible to take alignment exercises and put them in a more experiential box. So it doesn't feel like there's a have to or a should or a you're failing at doing this if you don't do it like that. Allow people the ability to play around with what's happening in their bodies so that they're striving for something instead of trying to get away from something. So other ways to think about this action would be kind of the occipital bulge, the shelf at the back of your skull, that's traveling up and back, right? Because some people don't think so easily from here, they think more from the back. So that's a perfectly good option. I've certainly heard the ponytail cue. Don't pull on someone's actual ponytail. I heard a story from a yoga teacher once who said she was in quadruped on her hands and knees, and a yoga teacher, a respected yoga teacher, came up and actually physically pulled on her ponytail to change the position of her head in the middle of a class. So tactile cueing is lovely, but not that one. That's not a good one. So this is a sagittal motion you're moving in this back and forth plane. So let's see what happens if you do your head ramp and then you add a rotation. And how quickly do you lose your head ramp? And as you rotate, you gradually end up picking your head up. This is one of those, oh, I can go this far going this way, and I can only go this far going this way. Symmetry is unlikely to be immediately available to you in this process. What happens if you anchor your skin and your fascia at the front? So you're going to just, we're not going for a full, you know, the whole jaw forward gigantic myofascial stretch. We're just putting a small anchoring here. And then you do your head ramp and you'll right away feel there's a little extra pull in the skin here, and then add a turn. It's very gentle. We're not looking for a big sensation here. And you turn from side to side. So I really like this one, especially as an anti-jamming my head forward towards the computer screen after teaching exercise. And then let's talk about the difference between a head hang and a head pivot. So a head hang, you're taking your whole head and your cervical spine, and the whole kind of combination of things is coming forward. You may find with some people that it leads into a bit of a thoracic curve, right? That the thoracic curve follows along with the cervical. And there's a nice weight to your head. For some people, this feels great. For some people, it feels terrible. For the teacher who was not feeling awesome about some of the neck movements, this one felt uncomfortable for her. So I always cue clients to come to a place that feels sustainable, that feels comfortably uncomfortable. So we're looking for, you know, is there a gentle sensation of length or stretch through the back of your neck, or up to the crown of your head, or down into your back, that feels welcome and something that you want to explore, as opposed to someone who's really tight. If they push down too far, it's going to feel nasty, and then they might get a headache afterwards, and we sort of don't want to elicit that kind of response. So working in places where they feel both psychologically safe and comfortable and confident and competent, and physically safe and comfortable, and easing into a discomfort is okay, but it needs to be comfortably uncomfortable. So when you do this, if you reach back, you will feel the transition between your thoracic spine and your cervical spine. You can feel here's the inward curve of the cervical, and you feel this transition vertebra, right? If you slide into a head ramp, you'll feel that slides in, right? It becomes a nice, smooth, consistent transition. And that's a really nice way also for clients to know, for you to cue, especially when we're teaching like this, where you don't have your hands on. Say to the client, okay, find that sticky outy bump, let your head hang down, slide the base of your skull up and back, slide your jaw up your imaginary pyramid until you feel that sticky outy bump slide in so that it's in line with the rest of your spine. Not in a straight line, but in a nice consistent curve. I like that one. So then if you go to a pivot, it's not the same. If you can get into this kind of head ramped position where your chest is stable, your spine is stable, you can feel you've got a little space, and then you slide your eyes down and your nose down, and you let your chin tip. You're just pivoting your head. So again, if you're super double chinny, is good. But this lower part of your spine doesn't really move. The lower part of your neck doesn't move, your cervical spine. We're looking at craniovertebral flexion, the forward curving of your skull, your cranium, relative to the vertebra, to your neck, and then C1 and C2, first and second cervical vertebrae. It's a teeny tiny little motion. And it goes much deeper into the upper part of your neck than this does, right? The big curve forward is going to get more of the big surface muscles. The head pivot is going to get you more into the very top of your neck. So they go together really well. And then you could add variations in position to those as well. So you could let your head hang down and turn to look at your left shoulder and turn to look at your right shoulder, right? That feels pretty good. Getting into your traps, your upper traps. You could add some rotation. So you could turn to look at your right shoulder, stay tipped, and rotate your eyes up towards the ceiling and down towards the floor. And up towards the ceiling and down towards the floor. And then you can slide your head forward and over to the other side and do the same thing. Look at your shoulder and look at the ceiling. One of the interesting things about your neck muscles is that they happen on angles. And so they're particularly good at doing what heads and necks do, which is moving around a lot, right? Because the tiger could be anywhere. Everything is done, everything is organized to keep us safe and allow us to survive long enough to create another generation. So your head needs to be able to move easily to see the tiger from every possible direction. And so when you're doing neck stuff, it's useful to go into lots of different directions. And one of the things that we tend to forget is that work is also important for neck muscles, right? So we've moved your neck muscles, we have stretched your neck muscles, we have released them. But now we're going to add a little bit of resistance. So this is one of those, you could use a prop, you could use a ball, you could use a strap, you could use a stretchy band. But if you're working with clients who don't have any props, you can just use your hand. So we'll start with just your hand. So you place one hand beside your head and you press your head into your hand. And you'll feel there's activation of the neck muscles. And you release and press your head into your hand and release. And then you do the opposite. Hold your head still, push your hand into your head. And again, press into your head. And you can do the same thing on the other side because some degree of symmetry. Press your head into your hand and release. And press your head into your hand and release. And then change. So push your hand into your head. And again. So this is a perfectly good strategy if you don't have any props, but you can maybe feel that and you can do that in every direction, right? You can push your head forward, you can push your head back, you can go on diagonals, you can, turn all the things we just did in terms of head hang, head pivot, and head ramp, adding angles and you can do the same thing with resistance. It doesn't matter where you go, you're providing a little bit more nutrition for some part of your neck. But it has this, like, you got to hold your hands in place thing. So a ball and a wall are a fantastic alternate to that. So if you imagine the ball is against the wall, then you don't have to be holding your arm in place. And you press your head into the ball and release. This is giving different information because this is squishy. It has a totally different feedback, biofeedback than this. So you could do both. There's no reason why you couldn't have a client do a pass with their hand and a pass with a ball. Same thing in every possible angle and configuration. They're gentle presses. We don't need to be going super hard here. You're pressing maybe 40, 50%, not 100. I really like going forward, right? And working here through the front of the neck and creating some length in the back. So this is a really helpful thing. A squishy ball is nice, or a smaller ball to actually draw down and squeeze and release. Again, length in the back, work in the front, super pretty, lots of double chins. If you're feeling incredibly double chinny, you're bang on the target. And again, we're looking at staying reasonably stable and still through your thoracic spine, through your ribs. You could do the same thing with a yoga strap, right? You can pull back as you head ramp into some resistance. You can turn into some resistance. I really like this one. This is a great way to provide a sense of strength, especially for people who tend to be a bit hypermobile and a little bit, people who feel like they're a bit floppy. Giving them a tactile, containing control tool so that they feel agency in their movement, and they feel a little bit of a containment is really good. You can do all this stuff in lots of different positions. So you could be lying down, right? You could be lying on the floor and pressing into a ball, a little bit of a turn. That's really good. Pressing into a folded up towel, a soft half dome, something that's not, you know, like a hard half dome or something a yoga block, a soft yoga block would do, but something that's going to give some resistance. Those are all good ones. One of my favorites, which I'm not going to demonstrate fully because my wall is all the way over there, but you put the ball on the wall. You could do this with your hand, but wall is better. You put the ball, your head on the ball, and you make circles with your head. Again, there's going to be some double chin action happening here, which is just fine and dandy. Change directions, circling around. So we're giving your brain and your neck the opportunity for a slightly more complex movement, right? Most of what we've done has been in a single plane or in two planes. Well, once you start circling with a ball that's giving you constant, slightly unbalanced feedback, that's a great way to kind of stimulate the ability to have some freedom of movement on your head, for your head relative to your neck. And then one of the other ways that you can create a little bit of resistance is to take a stretchy band and put it on top of your head. It's very pretty. The problem with these is that they often don't stay in place very well, but you can give it a go. You want to think about the idea that you are lengthening up. That's so pretty. You're lengthening up into the resistance of the band, so you're creating this long elongation of muscle, and then you can do all the same things: turning, head ramping, looking up and down, all of those options. You might need to hold your band in place. Famita, one of the people who was in the call yesterday, mentioned something that you can order from Amazon. If you order from Amazon, it's a 3-person balloon launcher. So it's a square piece of fabric that has handles, has like stretchy tube handles coming off it. The problem with the TheraBand is that it's slippery, right? It doesn't stay, and you have only 2 possible directions before it falls off. This thing, she showed it to us, it was great. It goes right over the top of your head, and then because you've got two pieces of tubing coming off either side, you have way more potential for the resistance, and then that becomes a really cool toy to play with. So that is something to look for, and I'll see if I can find a link for it, and I will include it in the email that you will get with this replay. So those are sort of my favorites in terms of head and neck exercise. And if you go back again to just, if you like your eyes closed, great. If you like your eyes open, great. Go back and just observe what is happening now for your whole body, because we know it's all connected. So maybe if you're standing and you've done all this neck stuff, maybe your feet feel more planted, or your back is eased, or your hips are more on and supportive. But for the most part, what's happening in terms of your chest and your shoulders? How are your arms hanging? Where is your head being pushed or pulled to in terms of your neck? Do you feel like if you ask your brain to ask your body to relax any unnecessary tension, is there still anywhere to go? I feel like I'm pretty centered now, and if I deliberately try to relax, I don't have nearly as much tension to relax as I typically do. And so that's what I can say about all of those things. I feel like really a big, as much as the exercises and the movements are important, I feel like the awareness of held patterns of tension and well entrenched responses to stress and anxiety and other people's stress and anxiety. That's really the key part here for me. As teachers, I think we sometimes take on other people's stress and tension, and we do it with the best of all possible intentions, but then we go home wearing someone else's stress and tension. So having a practice, a mindfulness practice that recognizes if you have a tendency to be a physical container for other people's stuff, being able to feel when that's happening, or whether your own stuff is having this kind of effect, it's really important. It's important to take time and to, I mean, that's why we call it a practice, right? You practice it so that you get good at it, but you practice it so that you are in the moment of it, and you practice it so that when the whole entire world as you know it shifts and changes, you don't have to learn it in that moment. You already have it as a practice. You have it as an awareness. And so hopefully that's helpful to you. Oh, maybe that's not a new concept. I think most of us think about this kind of stuff pretty often, but if I've given you anything new to think about, that would be great. And so we don't have a big group here today, but is there anybody who has any questions or has brilliant ideas that I haven't thought of that they would like to share? Because we learn from each other, and I love learning from other people. And if everybody is good and feeling set, that was beautiful. Oh, that's great. I'm so glad. I would love to say thank you so much for coming. And I am recording this. I do have the recording, and I will send out the replay to everybody who has asked for it. And if you have any other questions, body parts, exercises, things that you would like to discuss and get together and work through, or teaching skills and strategies that you would like to work on, let me know. Shoot me emails. I love emails. And we'll create another one of these again soon. So thank you for joining me and sharing some of your time with me. And take care, and see you next time. Bye.